Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Q in Charge. I'm your host, Joe, the Q Inc. Today, we're diving into an issue that's on the minds of many electric vehicle owners. Why do public electric vehicle charging stations fail? And what's behind those frustrating dead chargers we keep hearing about? With the number of electric vehicles hitting the road skyrocketing, especially here in North America, the reliability of public charging stations is becoming a critical issue. It's no longer just about having enough charging spots. It's about ensuring that the stations actually work when you get there. So what's the deal? Why do some supercharger networks operate almost flawlessly while others have to navigate unreliable third-party networks with varying interfaces, inconsistent pricing, and multiple forms of authentication? Today, we're going to shed some light on why these problems persist and what needs to change for the future of electric mobility. Let's start by unpacking the root causes behind dead public charging stations. What makes them unreliable? Why do drivers often find themselves stuck with chargers that either don't work or are far too complicated to use? And here's where we hit a critical point. The electric cars themselves aren't the issue. It's the charging infrastructure that's causing headaches. Ford CEO Jim Farley put it perfectly when he says people don't have range anxiety anymore. What they have is charging anxiety. Think about that for a moment. The cars can go a distance, but the anxiety comes from whether the chargers will actually work when you need them most. It only takes a couple of bad experiences, like your neighbor showing up to a charging station with a low battery, only to find that the charger's out of service or it simply won't connect to their car. That's enough to make potential electric vehicle buyers think twice. Sure, most public chargers work most of the time. However, to achieve widespread electric vehicle adoption, charging stations need to be at least as reliable and easy to use as gas stations. I mean, that's not a very high bar, right? Yet here we are with the future of electric mobility on whether we can get this infrastructure piece, right? The vehicles are ready, but it's the charging networks that will make or break the transition. Think about it. We need to ensure that charging is not just available, but also seamless, consistent, and yes, reliable, because at the end of the day, if people can't trust the infrastructure, it doesn't matter how good the cars are. But to be able to achieve all this, we need help from the government and legislators to create some unified laws and codes that is same across the country. Why is this so crucial? Let me ask you a question. You tried to do this infrastructure already on your own? If you did, you know why I'm stating all this. If you haven't, believe me, it is so demanding on the paperwork before to even start on thinking where we will get energy source for what is needed. I mean, folk, there is so much to it. It is not a simple process as it seems. Many people tried and stopped after 1 or 2 years once they saw how difficult this industry is, but not with the ultimate benefits to us all, from the consumers to the operators and also for the planet. Yeah, I know there will be the one saying that making all this is still not clean energy, but if we do not start somewhere with a change on the energy use and remove completely from the pollutants and use only green energy, the road is long, but not unachievable. The mindset of the people needs to shift. Let's dig a little deeper. A recent J.D. Power report from May put some hard numbers behind the frustrations electric vehicle drivers are experiencing. It revealed that in the first quarter of 2023, 20.8% of electric vehicle drivers using public charging stations encountered issues. Chargers that were either malfunctioning or completely unusable. That's nearly 1 in 5 drivers left stranded, unable to charge their vehicle. And it's not just an isolated issue. If we zoom in on specific regions like the San Francisco Bay Area, things look even worse. A study conducted there found that almost a quarter of the chargers didn't work, with problems ranging from broken connectors to network and payment system failures. Imagine unresponsive screens, payment systems not working, or simply not being able to initiate the charge. It's no wonder drivers are getting frustrated, but there are good solutions. Problem is that The fast expansion that happened leading by the giant companies, that miserable failings. But that act placed a big shadow over electrification of the transportation. So now the small business owner that have potentially better solutions than the big companies are under same dark cloud. And it is difficult for them to present that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Now, the big question, why are these issues happening on such a large scale? A new study just released as part of the Electrification 2030 white paper shed some light on this, giving us national data on exactly what's going wrong with these charging stations. The study from the Electrification Institute highlights the pivotal challenges that could impact electric vehicle adoption over the next decade. It's a critical look at both public charging infrastructure and the broader movement toward home electrification, from solar panels to heat pumps and storage batteries. While I ended this sentence with batteries, not sure if you read the latest electric vehicle battery analysis. Now, let me bust a myth that's been floating around about electric cars. The fear that electric vehicle batteries degrade too quickly and won't last. But guess what? A new study shows that this concern is largely unfounded. In fact, most electric vehicle batteries are outlasting the vehicles they power. Crazy, right? A Canadian telematics company, Geotab, just updated their 2019 analysis of electric vehicle battery health. This time with data from 10,000 electric vehicles. Their findings are even better than expected. Back in 2019, they found that batteries were degrading at about 2.3% per year, which was already pretty solid. But now they're seeing an even lower rate of just 1.8% per year. Let me put that into perspective. At this rate, an electric vehicle battery could last over 20 years and still maintain more than 80% of its original capacity after 12 years. For fleet vehicles, that's well beyond their usual lifespan. So if you are worried about replacing your electric vehicle battery too soon, rest easy. These things are built to last. Before we get it going on, word from our sponsor. There are so many questions and uncertainty, but it is all achievable. Just find the right partners that will provide that help. One of them is QCharge. Simply visit www.qcharge123.com. So we suggest you simply download their app today, QCharge. Powering your journey one charge at a time. Let us continue where we stop. As we dig deeper into why these charging stations fail, let's look at some hard data. According to network monitoring conducted across the US this year, the most common causes of charging failures break down like this. Station connectivity issues, 55%. Internal station faults or errors, 38%. Problems with the charging connector or cable, 4%. Issues with the credit card reader, 1%. Faulty display screens, 1%. And combined, all the failures reach over 7% in public stations. Crazy. So as you can see, more than half of all failures, 55%, are due to connectivity problems. And what that means, well, that is in simple terms. You cannot start the charging session since there is no communication with its network to activate it. Here's why that's a big deal. Most public electric vehicle charging stations rely on a cellular connection for authentication or on a local networking of the property that most of the time fails. And we've all experienced how unreliable cell service can be in some areas, and depending on your location of the devices, when the station can't connect to its network, it's unable to validate the payment method or authenticate the user, leaving drivers stranded and frustrated. There are a couple of ways to fix this. One solution already used by some networks like Electrify America is to default to free charging if the station loses connectivity. If it can't validate your payment, you still get your charge without the hassle. But this doesn't solve the connectivity issue entirely, and it creates a profit loss. Another more robust option is to use hardwired communication cables for the station. However, this solution is much more expensive to install, which is why we're not seeing it adopted widely just yet. However, most of the equipment out there is capable on hardwiring, just that wireless, it is more convenient and easier to install. These connectivity challenges are a major roadblock for public electric vehicle networks, and until they're addressed, we'll continue to see frustration among drivers and a barrier to broader electric vehicle adoption. Now, let's look into some of the internal issues that are causing these public charging stations to fail. What I like to call station internals. This includes software glitches and hardware malfunctions that can really throw a wrench into the charging experience. Imagine pulling up to a charging station, plugging in your electric vehicle, and the screen just freezes mid-reboot. Frustrating, right? Well, many drivers have reported seeing things like Windows error codes on these public chargers, and it's usually a sign of a more complex internal problem. Each charging station is different, built by various manufacturers, and what works for one might not work for another. That's why when these systems go down, it's rarely a simple fix. Every issue, from software bugs to hardware malfunctions, needs to be addressed separately for each network, and let me tell you, that's no easy task. And then there are the minor issues, the rest of the things that cause headaches but maybe don't get as much attention. For instance, credit card readers. Yes, Elon Musk has been vocal about this one, even poking fun at how outdated these systems are. He's actually turned down public funding for Tesla's supercharger network because state and federal programs would require his stations to accommodate payment methods beyond mobile apps like, you guessed it, credit card readers. But is this resistance justified? It's a fine balance between keeping things easy and keeping them reliable. Now, while many electric vehicle charging networks claim to have high uptime, some boasting rates of 97% or better, it's important to dig a little deeper into what that actually means. Often, uptime is measured by whether a station can communicate with a central system. Oh, sure, it might be able to ping backs and appear functional on the network, but that doesn't guarantee that it can process a payment or deliver a reliable charge to the driver that shows up. That's a completely different story. The real challenge isn't just having a station that can respond to a computer check. It's having one that works when it matters most, when an electric vehicle driver is in need of power. Many drivers have shared frustrating experiences where stations seem operational on the map, only to find out they can't complete a charge when they arrive. But solutions are coming. Take California, for instance, where legislators have already begun tackling these reliability issues head on. Last year, the state passed AB 2061, a bill that requires all electric vehicle charging operators receiving public funds to adhere to strict reporting and performance standards. The aim is to ensure greater transparency and accountability with detailed metrics on uptime and charging success. And let's face it, when one state leads the way, especially in an area as critical as energy infrastructure, others are bound to follow. This isn't just a consumer issue either. Automakers are getting increasingly frustrated by the lack of consistent charging infrastructure. That's why earlier this year, several major automakers teamed up to create their own network of over 30,000 fast charging stations. These aren't just your average chargers either. Many of the stations will feature amenities to enhance the driver's experience while recharging. But still, as much progress as we're seeing, none of this resolves the immediate frustrations that electric vehicle drivers experience when they encounter broken or unreliable chargers. Prioritizing the maintenance and oversight of these charging networks is key to avoiding these issues and giving drivers the seamless experience they expect. Well, folks, that's a wrap on today's episode of Q in Charge. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of electric vehicle charging infrastructure and why it's such an exciting and critical space to invest in. If you found today's discussion valuable, or if it just gave you something to think about while stuck in traffic, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like button. And hey, while you're at it, why not subscribe and share this episode with a friend? You know, maybe the one who's always talking about buying an electric car, but still can't figure out where to charge it. Trust me, they'll thank you later. Before I let you go, make sure to stay tuned because we've got some amazing episodes coming your way that you won't want to miss. We'll continue exploring how new technologies and investments are shaping our future, so keep your ears open and your minds charged up. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time on Q in Charge. Over and out.